The Laval Rocket are on a win streak, and the big question heading into New Year's weekend is, can they finish off 2023 with a big celebration? Leading up to the Christmas break last week, the Laval Rocket had 2 games on the schedule as they wrapped up their 3-game road trip and also came home to Place Belle in Laval for 1 game for their home fans prior to the holiday break. Today we're going to give you a quick recap of how those 2 games went down, take a look at the Montreal Canadiens prospects playing for the Laval Rocket, and give you a breakdown as to who stood out. Speaking of which, we'll pick a standout star, and we'll get you all set for what's on the calendar this week coming up. After that awful outing against the Hershey Bears where they lost 7-1 to the defending Calder Cup champs, the Laval Rocket wrapped up their road trip with another visit to Syracuse to take on their division rivals and Joël Bouchard's new team. Jakub Dobeš was back in the crease for this one. He had put together back-to-back wins coming into this game against Hartford and against Lehigh Valley. Remember, it was Strauss-Mann who was in net against the Hershey Bears for that Saturday game. So Jakub Dobeš came back into the net, and he, once again, stood tall and looked strong. We remember the first game in Syracuse this season for Laval. The Crunch shut them out 5-0, and this was certainly not the case this time around. In fact, Laval won this game 3-2. It was a terrific bounce-back game after that 7-1 loss against Hershey. Joshua Waugh with a couple of assists on the night after Toby Paquette-Bisson and Brandon Gignac both helped to put some goals on the board. So they won this one 3-2. It was a great way to finish the road trip, grabbing 4 of 6 possible points on the road trip, and also another great outing for Jakub Dobeš. So then they came back to Laval for a Friday night game, their last game before the Christmas break. Wanted to get in one more game in front of their home crowd before the holiday. And this was their first game against another Atlantic Division opponent, the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins. The Penguins, who of course were riding pretty high in towards the top of the Atlantic Division, welcoming back 3 former familiar faces, former captain Xavier Ouellet, Pierre-Ric Dubé, even Rem Pitlick, all now playing for the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins. And Jakub Dobeš once again getting another starting goal. The only thing that was different here was that Strauss-Mann was not backing him up. Casimir Kaskasuo dressed as Dobeš's backup in this game. It was the first time that he dressed for a game for Laval. That was the only real difference with the crease assignments. And this was an exciting game. Wilkes-Barre didn't look necessarily like one of the top teams in the league, and Laval won this one 5-2. Arbor Jackeye potting his first AHL goal, came on the power play. It was a nice shot from the high slot and right into the back of the net. So a great accomplishment for him as he continues to work on things in the AHL. Sean Farrell was back in this game, and he made his presence known. 1 goal and 1 assist. He was +3 on the night and had 3 shots on goal. Sean Farrell, first game back from injury, picking up right where he had left off when he went out with injury a number of weeks ago, and looking to see him continue to rise up the ranks of the rookies for the Laval Rocket. Now, the standings are still going to be a struggle because of how poorly the team has started off the season. They are now 9-13, 3-2 on the season. That still leaves them last in the North Division, 14th in the Eastern Conference, and they've moved up just a place or two to 26th overall in the league. There's still a long way to go. This week on the prospect breakdown, coming off of back-to-back wins, a perfect week, which Laval has not had all season. We're not going to mention any disappointments or weaknesses in terms of the Habs prospects playing in Laval. We are only focusing on the good things today. And we're going to start with Jakub Dobeš because those 2 wins that he put together last week extending his streak to 4 consecutive wins. He really seems to be settling into his role and settling in a little bit more, getting more and more comfortable with the AHL. I did mention Sean Farrell as well. I'm going to point him out again. 1 goal, 1 assist, +3 in his first game back. Lias Andersson also came back on the same night, so there is no one on the injury. Knock on wood, there's no one on the injury report right now for the Laval Rocket. Sean Farrell was kind of going on a bit of a hot streak prior to his injury. He and Riley Kidney both kind of coming on at the same time. Farrell, unfortunately, getting interrupted by this injury, but picked up right where he left off. I'm very excited to see how he progresses in the coming weeks as he gets back into a regular rhythm as well. But going back to the goaltender, my standout star for this week has to be Jakub Dobeš. This young man has not had an easy first 3 months of his pro career. He has ended up having to carry a lot of the burden to try to get wins for a very young team who is struggling to keep pucks away from their net. And he's been pulled his fair share of times out of games, including the very first game of the season. But he has persevered. He's had such a terrific attitude. He wants the challenges. He wants the struggles. He wants the adversity. And you can tell that he's feeding off of it, and he's not letting that noise get in the way of his mental game. And he's really settling into being comfortable in the net. The guys in front of him talk about how he is a calm presence back there. And I think he's starting to give them a bit more confidence. Now you bring Kazimir Kaskisuo into the mix, a veteran netminder who's got experience, who can take some of that burden off of Jakub Dobeš and say, okay, kid, I can help take some of that pressure off of you to try to get the team a few more wins, maybe even offer some veteran mentorship and things like that you can soak in while you concentrate more on just learning how to be a goaltender at this level. So I think there's bright things ahead for Jakub Dobeš, and I'm looking forward to kind of seeing how he grows in the second half of the season. Coming up this week, I expect we will see Kazimir Kaskisuo get his first AHL start with the Laval Rocket. He was with the Toronto Marlies for a couple of seasons, but I imagine that we'll see him get his first start with Laval this week because they have their very first 3-in-3 of the season. For those of you who maybe don't follow AHL hockey as often, it's a common thing that you'll see on AHL schedules where the team will play a 3-in-3, which is 3 games in 3 back-to-back days. Not 3 games over the course of a week, but 3 consecutive days where they play a game. And this week is the first time that Laval will have to face a 3-in-3 on their schedule. They kick things off on Thursday with a quick road trip over to Belleville, where they will take on their division rivals. And then they come back home for 2 games, Friday night at 7, Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock. 2 games against Syracuse. It'll be Joël Bouchard's first visit back to Laval and Quebec as a coach, since he was coaching for the Laval Rocket. Despite the fact that they beat Syracuse last week, Syracuse is still sitting at number 2 in the North Division. They are still a formidable force to be reckoned with. There's going to be certainly a lot of emotions and tensions. These 3 games, all division opponents and all opponents where things tend to get pretty feisty. So it could be an exciting weekend for fans to watch, but I think it's going to be a challenging one for the Laval Rocket. It's going to be very important for them to once again come out with at least 2 wins. And most importantly, I think they need to get that win on Thursday in Belleville. They've put together back-to-back wins this past week. It's not the first time this season. They've only had a couple of occasions where they've put together back-to-back wins. They have not had a 3-game winning streak yet. So it's important for them to take a step forward in their process this season. It's important for them to finally be able to put together that 3rd consecutive win and walk away from Belleville on Thursday night with 2 points. Hey, if you're enjoying all of our content here on the channel and you haven't done so, won't you take a moment before the new year begins and tap that subscribe button, hit the notification bell. We've got so much content coming for you in 2024. You don't want to miss a minute of it. So hit the subscribe button, tap the notification bell, and hey, don't forget forget to hit that like button if you're enjoying today's video. One of the prospects that we spoke very highly of in the first part of the season was defenseman Jayden Struble, who has not been seen in Laval for a number of weeks because he is doing just fine in his recall to the Montreal Canadiens. He has settled in very nicely with the NHL game. The performance of Jayden Struble and a deeper look at all of the prospects playing in Laval and who have graduated or could graduate to the NHL here very soon were the focus of discussion for myself and Rick Stevens. I was the guest host on the Canadiens Connection podcast this past week, and Patrick Williams, who you saw on last week's episode of Rocket Hockey Report, he also came on to Canadiens Connection, and the three of us had a terrific conversation about what has made Jayden Struble successful and what other prospects could be up next in terms of getting a look in the NHL. And if you missed that episode, well, it's the perfect time for you to catch up on that, so you can click that video right here. Happy New Year to you.